Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? My name is Jeff Rizzo with McElroy Metal. This is Sarah Burkett from McElroy Metal as well. Today we're going to show you a training on residential roofing installation. Our panel that we have is called Meridian panel. It's a 26 gauge, 16-inch panel. It comes 24 gauge, 12-inch. Comes 24 gauge, 16-inch. Comes striated, comes minor ribbed, just a few other things out there, profiles. But today we're going to show you our striated panel. That's what looks good. So the roofs that we kind of show out here is we like to show them as a hemmed panel. So you actually literally hem the panel and hook onto a drip edge, okay, as a starter. Others out there, and even in our panel, you could actually screw it in the face. We don't do that. We like to say that standing seam is, a little bit more expensive, right, than pole barn steel. So the idea, if it's going to be that way, then it takes a little bit more effort. So let's make it look real nice and clean for the homeowner. So the homeowner, this is one of our drip edge. So what's important, and with us, with our company or any other company that's out there, is you have to tell us about pitches, okay? The suggestion is always to let us know what you have, the pitch, so that we can pre-bend pitches for you on your trims so everything comes to you all ready to go. Okay, so this is one of our rake trims that we're going to show you today. Is we have what's called a fixed rake cleat that goes up on the side. So notice I have the drip edge on already, all set. You're screwing it down every 12 inches, and then you have a rake cleat that goes up here. Okay, the fixed rake cleat is designed to where you don't have to put a screw in the face of the actual fascia, okay? Which you can, but in this area, but this is a nice way when I live in northern Michigan and a lot of customers don't want to see that screw in the face. They want a concealed fasten system. That's what this is, a purely concealed fasten system. So we use the fixed rake cleat. We use a rake trim like that, and then you have a Z closure, okay, that goes into here. Now the Z's, there's a couple ways of actually making your ends, your end cut. Some people might take one of these, come down and fold down. Instead of doing that, I like to, because I live in Michigan and there's snow, I usually see icicles sitting there because that sits there. So instead of doing that, what I do is I'll actually take snips and create this. So real quick, kind of show you here. And this is all based on the size of my rake trim that I'm going to. So I'd fold that back, and then I would fold this back. I can use, typically I use my snips or my benders over there. And then this is my finished product here. And I'll show you once we get to this part over here. What's nice about what we do is with McElroy Metal, we actually pre-notch our panels. So what that means is, obviously this rib's cut off for our application over there, but if normally you would get a panel like this from anybody out there, we even sell it to you this way as well, where it's not notched out. You do all the notching with your own snips. Nothing wrong with that. I've did it for years, but now that I have pre-notching, I've saved so much time and effort and labor, especially when I have my crew out there doing it. So we pre-notch the panels. So notice that it's already notched here. It's 1.5 inch notch. And the idea is that it's a factory edge. So all you have to do is fold and go, okay? So what's nice about it as well is that contractor with us, you actually you can get a panel layout. You can decide if you want to go right to left or left to right, your notching, and then we can just get it ready for you. So when it comes to your site, you're ready to go. You already have kind of a roadmap of how to put this panel on. So we pre-notch the panels. Strongly recommend it. Makes your life a whole lot easier. Flip it over. So there's a number of different ways you can do a hemming tool. You can do it this way. You can do it in the front with the panel already down. There's a number of different ways. Myself, I always like to turn it upside down. I'll put a piece of wood in between so that it keeps it nice and steady there. And then I'll end up making my notch. Okay. So obviously, because of purposes of I only have 1 hour, everything is already set up, pre-done. So that's our edge there that we do. So I always kind of bring it down a little bit. Notice that the fixed rake cleat is on already. It's first. So what I do is I put that on first, get that all the way up the rake, and then I'm ready to go. Okay. Then we start with the first panel. Now when you do your first panel, there's a number of ways of doing it. You can start with a full panel here and end with a little bit here. Myself, I always like to do a panel layout and say I'm going to take, if I'm going to do this symmetrical, I'm going to take 2 or 3 inches off of this panel and end up taking 2 or 3 inches off of that panel so it all evens out a little bit. Okay? So what you have to do in the first panel is always make sure that it's square. The old 3, 4, 5 method, right? 6, 8, 10 method. Always make sure that first one goes, because when you square it off on that first panel, it makes your life really easy and set the rest of them. But always keep an eye on it, because you don't want it to start walking on you. You don't want it to start, I call it sawtoothing. Okay? So we put a screw down. Okay. Notice we have slots every 3 inches. So what the suggestion pattern that we say is use it every 18 inches. So I'll hit one. Okay, and so on. All right. One thing that I like to do when I'm doing a roof like this is I always want to make sure that I'm actually working on this panel. So imagine you're on a roof, right? You're 10 feet off off the ground. I always like to get my panel on first. My first one started and set. I'll finish my rake while I'm there, because I don't want to get all my panels on and then come back and walk on a painted surface. Okay? So you see this panel or this trim piece right here, it's a rake trim. Notice it's an open hem like we talked about. Notice this is open hem as well. This is to receive to here. This is to be received to the Z closure. Okay? So my crucial dimension is right here. It's like 4 inches is what this is. So what I do is I showed you earlier with the Z what I do, and I make that cut, and then I make it here to where I'm folding it in, and it holds it in place. Whatever you do, when you have steel to steel, you always put butyl tape. Okay? I didn't put butyl tape on this because I have to take this thing apart. So always butyl tape underneath here. Okay? So we're just going to set this in place. Pre-drilled hole. We do it every 12 inches going up the panel, okay, as we go. The crucial part, and one of the things that Sarah and I both see, and one of the mistakes that we see contractors do, is that when a contractor is, let's say he's done shingles. Most of you have done shingles before. Well, normally you're set up and you're regularly go like this, right? You're just going to go on. This is coming up. This one goes on over here. Well, the problem is the water isn't here, right? You see that? The water does not come this way. If this is my top of my roof, it comes down. That's not where the water is because I have a cap over it. The water is actually underneath here. So the problem that we have is we see people, if they ever say there's a little leak there, it's because the water's shedding and hitting this. So this is what you have to do. You got to think watershed, people. So the water's hitting here now and going down. Okay? So you can see that? So that's when you're seaming these Z closures. Now there's two ways of putting this on. You can either hook it on here and then grab onto there, or bear with me a moment. Slide it on like that. So that's a rake trim. One thing I would do here is I would just put a pop rivet in this place right here, drill a hole, put a pop rivet in, just to hold everything tight into place, okay? So that's our finished rake trim. Notice there's no screws, nothing that we're putting on the face. Now, as I said before, you don't have to have that fixed rake cleat. You can just put face screws here, which is totally fine as well. Okay. We have mallets for a reason. So you don't hurt your hand doing 25-foot long panels. So you always want to have, typically when I have a crew going, I have a person on the ladder or his pick right here at the eave. He has one of these, he has that screw gun and a bunch of screws in his pocket. There's a person up top like she is right there, which is perfect. And I send the panel up to her, and then she would make sure it's in place, and then we pound it down. And you always want to pound it down and pound it up because you don't want it to slide on you, because this panel will slide. So once we're down, my job at the eave is to make sure that this is running straight. That's my job. Once I have that panel in, then we have to close it. I believe in getting all this done now than as I did down the road, okay? So I have to close this off. So all this simply is just grabbing it. Thank you. So you notice on mine, Sarah brought up a great point. I have duct tape, a little worn, because I've used them a few times. But the reason we put the duct tape in there is so it doesn't mar the paint, okay? So strongly recommend it. So this is our finished look. And then we keep on going as we go. So, but I would have to screw it in first, right? So everybody remember how many inches? Anybody? 18, thank you. All right, we got somebody awake. I like it. We'll just put one per as we go. So before I put that on, I take care of this. And the whole idea is not to try to grab it at one shot. You want to go back and forth and make that nice and clean, okay? Next, same thing, pound it down, put a screw in it, good to go. Yeah, and notice, I'm sorry, the one thing I forgot to mention is there's film on the panels. So please make sure you peel off film. It's very important. You'd be surprised at how many times we get called out to a paint claim or something looks like it's chipping or cracking, and the person forgot to take off strippable film, okay? Especially on drip edge, or especially on all your trims. They'll have film from us because we have to fold it and make it into the right part and put the right pitch on it for you, okay? So please make sure you do that. If you know you're on a hot day, please make sure you put a tarp or something over them so they're not gonna get boiled on, okay? The sun doesn't bake in that film because it is a pain to get it off. So you always wanna make sure you get that film off as fast as you can, okay? All right. So this one, we would have hemmed it, hooked it on, ready to go. I'll just do it by hand right now. Okay, so this piece here is called a rake tie-in trim. So this is like your sidewall trim, okay? And notice what we have again, open hem. Again, we're just trying to do everything so we're just hooking into things, and you do less pop rivets. So again, the dimension we need is here. We take that in consideration, we measure this, and then I strike a line of where I'm going to put this on in place. Okay. Put this piece on. Hook in. Screw it onto the wall every 12 inches. Okay, as we go up. Now, here's something that I do a little different because I'm in northern Michigan, and we use ice and water. Okay, we use it a lot. Ice and water is our friend. So what I'm talking about is like an ice and water guard product, a peel and stick membrane. We also use a lot of window wrap. So in this case, when I have a new build situation like this, I'll actually take a strip of window wrap and I'll actually strip it in over the top of that so nothing gets in there. Okay, my roofs don't leak. And then the guy can come in and do his siding. Okay. Okay. Next is we would have our high side tie-in trim. Thank you. So high side tie-in trim is the same thing like this. So our standard is an 8-inch. If you think it's too big for you and you want 6-inch, you can make 6. If you want to make 4, you make 4. We can custom bend any trim up to 20 foot long in our facilities and kind of put the dimensions on here. As long as you draw it, we can pretty much make it. Okay, so don't be afraid to get into it. I'm a big custom trim guy. If I know that my rake is 10 foot, our normal trim is 10 foot 3. So if I know my rake trim is 12 foot, I'll order a 14 foot trim. Okay, that way I have no seams. Valleys, same thing. When you have a valley, you don't want any seams as much as possible in valleys. So if I have a 10 foot valley, I'm ordering I usually put a foot on each side, so I'm ordering a 12 foot valley. So that way I got enough to cut off on that side and to cut off at the top. Okay, don't be afraid to go custom. It might cost a little bit more, everyone, I'll tell you, but in the long run, it helps you out and it saves you from not getting leaks. That's the key. Okay, so then what I usually do in this situation, we'll put this up here like dry fit, pardon my back, and then I would take a pencil and I'd mark on top of each of the ribs of where I want to be, where that trim's going to hit it. And then after that, we're going to take that off. And then I set my Z's usually about a 1/4 inch behind it. What goes underneath the Z? Remember? Metal to metal, come on. Butyl tape, thank you. Butyl tape, some people say, can I put caulk in there? Sure, but make it butyl caulk. You don't want to use a silicone, okay? So we're gonna put butyl tape behind it. I use a scratch all punch because I'm going through 2 pieces of 26 gauge steel. So I'll pound a hole and hold it in place. I have 2 of them usually with me. I'll pound a hole, set it, and then I'll move over to the other side and set that one. And I'll go back and put my screws in. So you just want to keep it in place. That's the whole thing. Okay, just one more here. Okay. Then we take that piece, and the whole idea is to hook it. So you want to get it in place, make it to where we're hooking into the trim, and there you go. We're hooked in. Now I would put a pop rivet every panel. So one in the middle, each one of those, and pop rivet, and just hold it into place. Okay? That's actually obviously screwed down. Okay. So then we move on to if we're doing a ridge cap. So one thing to understand about when you're actually ordering panels for standing seam is you need to be pretty on. You got to be pretty close. Okay. Should I panic if my trim is 4 inches short like that? No. What can I do? Order a bigger ridge cap. Okay, a little wider. Unfortunately, I've seen some crazy ones out there. They're like 2 foot long or 2 foot wide on each side. Don't go that bad, please, but get close. So the whole thing is just like venting. You want to keep it about 2 inches off the top. Well, we came off a little longer here. And the reason being is you have to think about this. The panel, we hem 1.5 inches out of, and then another 1.5 inches. So technically it takes 3 inches out of the length of this panel. So if I'm measuring this roof, and this goes from the fascia piece all the way up to the middle of the ridge, and it says 10 foot, I add 1 inch in. So I call it 10-foot 1. Now what happens is I'm set 2 inches down from the center and I'm venting perfectly. That's exactly what I want, okay? So you just wanna, you gotta plan ahead on some of those things. Okay, so these are the snap C's that we talked about. What's nice about these is that they come 1 inch, they come 1.5 inches, they come 1 3/4 and 2 inch, okay? They come pre-cut to the size that you want of these panels. So these are a 16-inch panel. We ask them to cut them to 15.5 inches long. So what's nice also is it has the butyl tape already on it. So by having that butyl tape already on, I can set it into place. So remember I had my little, I made my marks on top of the rib over there? Well, guess what? I'm gonna do the same thing with my ridge cap. Got it here. Thank you. We have open hems because we have to hook into it. I like to try to keep screws off my roof as much as possible and only use pop rivets the color of the steel, okay? So then what we have is once we're set, I kind of always do a dry fit and say where I want it. I'll make my mark on the ribs and now I know where to set it. Again, I set these about a 1/4 inch back from where I'm making that mark so that I'm not fighting the actual ridge cap. So we're going to screw a couple in here. Now the ridge cap, we always get this question. What do you do to finish off the edge? I've seen different ways and there's all different, you know, contractors like their own ways. This is one way that I do it. Where I actually, so this is my profile. I'll make a notch here, notch this out, notch here, notch here, notch here, notch here. And then I actually fold everything in. So that way, I end up with this. Nice and clean. I might put a pop rivet right here to hold everything in place. And then we'll end up hooking onto here. Okay. Oh, I'm hooked onto there. Yeah. I put a pop rivet into this area, and then I hold it all into place. And that's our vented ridge. Really easy. You don't see screws. You might see pop rivet. You put a pop rivet here, here, and here, but it works well. Other questions? We appreciate your time. Thank you very much on behalf of McElroy. We appreciate you coming out. Have a great show.